I am not going to sugarcoat any of this shit for you guys. It's quite a sexual move. And I'm actually scared that I have to show you this. I'm kind of glad it's not a follow along. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube. This week I'm not doing a diet update. I am doing something else that has been requested. A lot of people are wanting workouts and specifically have questions around whether you can build muscle from home. And everyone asks me about glutes because I'm like, the glute gal, is that a thing? Can we call me that? Nah, don't do that. So low-key feel like this is going to be a really long-ish video just because I am going to go into a bit of like sciencey but relatable sciencey stuff in regards to building muscle, how we build muscle, the principles that we use, and then I'm going to show you a workout. Didn't I mute you? Does anyone else have WhatsApp on their desktop? It's a game changer for distracting me. And then I'm going to jump into a workout and I'm going to go through all the cues for the exercises. They're all glute specific exercises, so I'll go through all the cues for those, and then I'll speak a little bit about programming, so how you can ensure you are progressing from home every week, every month, because who knows how long we're going to be stuck in ISO life for. Also really loving how much everyone is just getting around these videos. Like, I've been working so hard to up my YouTube game, so having people commenting and saying they appreciate it and asking for certain content is amazing. It's like a warm isolation hug. It's that like hugging yourself thing. That's me. So I was gonna make this a like follow along workout video, but it's already going to be long because I'm going to be talking about muscle growth principles. I'm going to take you through the workout. So I think maybe I'll do another video with like follow along style, like real time, but I'm going to show you the first set for every single exercise. And I just wrote this workout. I'm actually scared that I have to show you this. I'm kind of glad it's not a follow along because I honestly think I'm just going to show you like the first set and not actually do this workout myself. Disclaimer, the real BTS. So I am now just going to jump into talking about how we build muscle quickly, just give you a really quick overview and talk about some of the principles and then how we apply them in our training, how I'm going to apply them to this training session that I'm going to show you, and I'll talk about the equipment you need, etc. after this. I honestly don't know why I decided to film this at 20 to 3. It's like my lunchtime and I'm freaking starving. Love that for me. Also, I forgot to put deodorant on today and I feel like I really smell. No, this is bad. When I get hungry brain, I just like, I go a little bit weird. Okay, so can you build muscle from home? More specifically, can you build your glutes from home? I am not going to sugarcoat any of this shit for you guys. I'm going to be 100% upfront and honest about what results you can expect from training at home. As you know, I never train from home. Obviously, we are all forced to be doing that and we don't all have home gym setups. So personally, I'm working with some 10 kilo dumbbells and I have a few weight plates that I'm working with too. So that's really handy in terms of being able to progress using heavier and heavier weights. With that being said, the people who will be able to build muscle from home are going to be your novice trainers, so people that are newer to training, whereas your more kind of intermediate advanced trainers are going to be focusing more on retaining muscle. So it's not impossible. It is possible to build muscle from home. So for someone like myself, I'm not going to be building really any muscle. I'm going to be focusing on retaining the muscle that I have and have built, because there's just a limit to how much you can do from home, which is what I'm going to be discussing in a second. I'm going to be covering the 3 main growth principles of hypertrophy. That is mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. So what we want to be focusing on is recruiting as many motor units as possible. Now, in order to stimulate muscle growth, we need sufficient protein, which is the building blocks of our muscles, and a sufficient stimulus to force our body to change. So for that reason, the most important thing to consider when you're training from home is intensity. We need to bring intensity because most of us, going to be using a lot lighter weights than we're used to when we're training in the gym. So you need to be training pretty close to failure to elicit similar responses than training not as close to failure, but with heavier loads. I'm going to jump into the 3 principles: mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage now. Let's start with mechanical tension. Mechanical tension is when we apply a force to create tension, which leads to the recruitment of muscle fibers. So the goal is to recruit as many muscle fibers as possible in the area that we are focusing on building. For the purpose of this YouTube, that is our glutes. So in order to do that, people previously thought we had to lift super heavy weights, and that was the only way to achieve mechanical tension. But studies have shown that even if we're lifting 30% of our 1 rep max but taking it to failure, we can still elicit the same muscle growth using lighter weights as we can achieve with heavier weights. So this is the principle that we're going to be using for home training, because we don't all have access to really heavy weights. So we're going to focus on taking things closer to failure, or 3, 2, or 1 reps shy from failure. Moving on to metabolic stress, this is a change to the environment due to fatigue. So we have a buildup of metabolites, and this will occur in our lighter work, higher rep stuff, more accessory style work. And it's just a way that the cell works to repair itself, because the cell has been compromised through restricted blood flow and the buildup of metabolites from that restricted blood flow. Then we have muscle damage, which, to be honest, is kind of overrated. A lot of beginners and newer trainers will experience a lot of muscle damage because they're not used to training. We stretch and tear and create trauma inside our bodies, so white blood cells actually go to the site to repair the damage that we're creating. So in terms of our muscle protein synthesis, which is the process of building the muscle through getting enough protein in there, it actually has to repair the damage first before it can build. So say this is like your muscle and you've got a micro tear from the damage that you've placed on it. So we've got the muscle protein synthesis happening to repair the muscle, and then it can build muscle on top of that. So until it's repaired, it's like a lot of the protein is actually going to repairing the muscle rather than building the muscle, if that makes sense. So I know a lot of people say like, I've got DOMs, that's awesome, that equals more muscle building. It doesn't actually. So I tend to steer away from using muscle damage as one of the kind of primary methods for muscle growth in my programming. We focus pretty much on mechanical tension, and then I like to add in maybe a mesocycle or a day where we've got our higher metabolite or metabolic stress work. So now that I've taken you guys through the 3 core principles for building muscle, we're going to move on to the workout. So what you're going to need for this is some sort of weight. I do have 2 10-kilo dumbbells, so if you don't have weight, get creative. Like, don't use that as an excuse. You can find something in your house surely to use as weight. Like, get a backpack, fill it with books, fill it with rice bags, fill it with canned food, fill it with shit. Like, you can add weight beyond your body weight. If you are challenged by these workouts without weight, then that's awesome. You're probably more of a beginner. You can use body weight and then progress by adding weight through, you know, what I've mentioned, the backpack with shit in it. You also need a bench of some kind. So that could be a chair, a coffee table, your bed frame or bed. We want it to be around 30 centimeters height. This is for our hip thrust. You don't want it to be too high because that's just going to compromise the biomechanics of this movement. I am going to run through all of the cues and stuff for the exercises and speak a little bit about what I'm doing and how to make it the most effective. But in terms of progressing yourself from one week to the next, what I want you to focus on is the following: reps in reserve. So because I mentioned earlier, the most important thing with your home training is intensity. How do you gauge how hard you're pushing yourself? So what I want you to start focusing on is reps in reserve. That is basically how many reps until you are at complete failure. Because once we're at complete failure, we have recruited all of the muscle fibers we can in that area, and that's going to really help us build muscle. The first week, we're going to focus on 3 RIR, reps in reserve, so 3 reps shy of total failure. Then the second week, we're going to focus on 2 RIR. Then the third week, 1 RIR, and then the final week, no reps in reserve. We're going to complete failure on all exercises. So that's one way that you can figure out if you're actually bringing the intensity. Like, you need to go to that really horrible dark place in your head when you're training at home where you're like, this, I need to stop. Your head says stop, but your body's like, I can keep going. So you got to push past that point if you want to see muscle growth and if you want to retain your muscle. That's really, really important. And then that's mesocycle 1. So the first mesocycle is 4 weeks. So we've got RIR 3, 2, 2, 1, 0. And then we move on to mesocycle 2, which is where we will be changing exercises, adding volume. So instead of doing 3 sets, we will be doing 4 sets. The mesocycle after that, we can add 5 sets. We can still change the exercises as well, but we're going to be increasing our volume over time so that we are increasing the stimulus and recruiting more muscle fibers across the board to help us build our muscle. That's how we program. That's a very, very basic, quick overview of how we program to continuously, progressively overload. Now let's jump into the workout and you can watch me diet, and then I'll just do a quick little bye at the end. Okay, so for our first exercise, we're doing a dumbbell Bulgarian split squat. Now, as I said earlier, if you struggle doing these with weight, then it's totally fine to just do body weight, and you can progress by increasing weights each week or each mesocycle, however long it takes you to advance. With the Bulgarian split squat, you want to take a step forward. The bigger your step, the more glute focused it's going to be. The shorter your step, that one will be more of a quad focus. So given we're focusing on the glutes this time, take a more kind of normal step, a little bit outside a normal step for your stance. But get comfortable and find a position that works for you where you really feel that stretch in the glute as you descend into the movement. You want to make sure your knee is coming down pretty much to the ground in this to get as much stretch on the glute as possible. With a slight bend at the hips forward, this will open up your ability to get deep in your range for that. So these I'm going to 3 RIR because this is week 1 of this program that I have put together for you guys of this session. So you can see towards the end, I'm sort of puffing and panting. I'm slowing down a bit. Things are getting tricky. Also, if balance is a limiting factor for this, guys, you can take a step slightly out to the side to increase the plane that you're working in and hopefully help your balance with that. Now we've got our hip thrusts. I'm using dumbbells here again, and I've added a 1 1/4 rep to this. So typically any exercises that I lift reasonably heavy on, I am enhancing the difficulty by adding a 1/4 rep. You can do this by adding pauses, you can slow down the eccentric, you can add deficits, so you could even elevate your feet for this one. Anything that's just going to make it that bit harder than what you're used to with a lighter weight is a really good way to progress this movement. So with the hip thrust, I do find a lot of people really struggle with this because they're always focusing on pushing the weight up and their bum up as far as possible to the ceiling. So you don't actually need to do that. That's gonna take out the glutes, if anything. I find these work my glutes so much more when I think about at the top of the movement, tucking my pelvis under and my rib cage down. So often people just stay in a neutral spine on the way up and down, but if you actually tuck your pelvis under, it's called a posterior pelvic tilt. So you want to tilt that upwards because that is just going to engage the glutes that much more. So try that, guys, just that one little tip, and try not to push all the way up to the top. Just make sure you're like curving your bum under essentially at the top of every single rep. And because we're doing 1/4 reps, you've really got an opportunity to open up your pelvis and then tuck it back under in that. So you'll really feel that engaged. You'll have the constant tension. So it's basically like 2 reps in 1. So that's going to be really good for recruiting the muscle fibers to help with our hypertrophy. These 2 exercises are performed back to back as a superset, so there is no rest in between these exercises, and we're going to be doing 3 sets of this. And I'm not really going to give you reps, guys, because everyone's 3 RIR is going to be different. So it could be 8 reps, it could be 15 reps, it could be 20 reps. That's going to be up to you. So literally just go until you feel like you're 3 reps shy of failing. And yes, that is per leg on the Bulgarians. Really solid about that. We're going to be resting for 120 seconds in between supersets. We still need sufficient rest to be able to recover from training this close to failure. It is a pretty intense way to train, so make sure you are resting up and recovered for your following 2 sets. Then we are going to be moving on to our B series. So it's another superset, and it's just a really good way to add in more volume to your training supersets. So we've got Romanian deadlifts, and they're going to be 1 1/4 reps. Like I said previously, anything that I or you are used to lifting heavier on, I've added 1/4 reps. So the Romanian deadlifts with dumbbells, I would usually like double how much I'm lifting, if not double and a half. So I've got 10 kilos in each hand here. I am using quarter reps at the bottom range, which is when I'm in the stretch position, which is when I will be recruiting more muscle fibers in this position. So we're going quarter reps. I want the quarter rep to be slow and controlled. Don't just bounce in it, because that's helping the body. We want to make it as hard for the body as possible. And I know it's really difficult, but we want intensity. We want to be challenged by these exercises. So with our Romanian deadlifts, what you want to think about is having a neutral spine, or you can have slight extension in the spine, so it'll slightly curve up, if anything, rather than rounding. And you want to think about pushing your bum to the back wall behind you and coming down slowly. So we're getting the full stretch in the hamstrings and the glutes. If you find your body is rounding or you are coming up off your toes, then you are moving back too far. So come back a little bit more to your center of gravity. You may not be able to go all the way down. You'll notice that I can get quite low in these, and I do have a slight bend in my knees, but that is because I'm able to get full range of motion with good technique. So until your technique is on point, don't push it with the range of motion or getting too far down with your hands. Moving on to our second exercise in this superset, we're going to be doing walking lunges. If you don't have the space to be doing walking lunges, you can do a split squat, which is just a stationary one. You just stay in the same spot and go up and down in the split squat, but I clearly have the space to be doing this. So what I do with my walking lunges, I am leaning slightly forward to engage a little bit more glutes, so get a little bit more stretch in the glutes in the posterior chain. And you'll notice that I'm stepping slightly to the right and left every time I take a step, because I am really bad with balance. So I need to step a little bit outwards to increase my plane that I'm working in to stay balanced. Walking lunges are also going to be hitting your quads as well, but in any kind of glute workout, it is good to have some opposing muscle groups in there to allow for some rest and recovery for the glutes from the other exercises. Like the previous exercise, we're going to be doing 3 sets of all of these, and reps is totally up to you. We want 3 RIR, 3 reps in reserve. So this could be, like I said, 8 reps, 15 reps, 30 reps, whatever you're able to do. And expect a drop off from set to set as your fatigue accumulates. We're going to be having no rest in between supersets and 120 seconds rest, so 2 minutes in between our sets. Moving on to our C series. So you'll notice that the first 4 exercises were more of our mechanical tension strain of our hypertrophy principles. Now we're moving on to our metabolic stress. So we've got lighter weights, higher reps, and more localized exercises. So they're not so much our compound movements that are multi-joint. We're going to be using more isolation, so more glute only specific exercises. So the first one, we have dumbbell frog pumps. So get your dumbbell or your weight or whatever you're using, sit this on your hips. What you're going to do is lie down on your back. You're going to bring your feet together in like a little bit of a diamond shape with your legs. Just have your knees up and down, and you'll see me do this, and then they just drop to the side and open up. We're going to have our feet together, and then you're going to drive up through your glutes using that posterior pelvic tilt. So it's basically a glute bridge, but with our knees out to the side, and really focus on that posterior pelvic tilt, that tilting of the pelvis at the top of the movement. And it's really just like an up and down with that. Quite a sexual move. And then we're going to superset that with our dumbbell side clams. So these are killer. Like if you have a resistance band, you can do that for any of these. You can also add resistance bands to increase the difficulty, but dumbbell on the side, like this is 10 kilos. This is actually very difficult. You'll see me fail pretty quick on this one. I want you to take these to failure. This is going to be anywhere from like 30 to 50 reps every set, and you will fatigue pretty quickly, but you should recover faster from these ones because they aren't going to be recruiting as many muscle fibers as your compound lift. So we are going to be doing 3 sets, and like I said, as close to failure as possible. So really high rep ranges like 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. We're going to be doing 3 sets, and we're going to be resting 90 seconds in between each set and no rest in between supersets. Thanks so much for watching this YouTube, guys. I hope I wasn't too like science heavy on this one, because everything that I read and research and learn is very scientific. Like I use a lot of principles and terms and scientific chemical pathways and things that are just like you don't need to know. I just need to put it in layman's terms so that you guys can be like, okay, I need to be training really close to failure so that I'm going to get the most out of my workout. You don't need to know about the muscle fibers or the different parts of the bodies that recruit different muscle fibers and why, and lower body and upper body and different muscle twitch fibers and everything. Like, you don't need to know that. So I really did try and strip it back. I just hope it made sense. Anyway, if you guys did enjoy this, let me know. Next week I'm going to be coming out with another diet update. So this week I just wanted to take you through a workout because not a lot has changed, to be honest, in this week of dieting. Ask me anything, any questions, anything you want me to be filming in the coming weeks, let me know. But please make sure you subscribe, like and comment, turn post notifications on so you don't miss a video. I'll see you guys back here next week.